Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. I thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it. We got a lot to talk to you about. First off, I didn't get to talk about the Trans Day of Visibility, or I didn't yesterday. We had an interview that you guys, I hope you caught. And that is with constitutional attorney Zach Smith of the Heritage Foundation. I hope you were able to check out that interview because it was a good one. We went through with great detail and specificity questions that I had with Trump's immunity case. You guys may have heard the news that Trump posted his $175 million bond in that civil fraud case. So none of his properties or assets will be seized. So that's in the news today. We'll talk about that. We'll get to that. But first, I do want to deal with this what is it? Trans Day of Visibility, and also what we saw occur yesterday with the LSU. Did you guys see this? LSU and Iowa played. The LSU women's basketball team lost, thank God, to Iowa. And I say that because they have this coach. What is her name? I think it's Coach Kim Mulkey. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't follow college basketball. I stopped following college basketball. I mean, it just hasn't been good for me, at least male basketball, for so long. I actually do think the women's college basketball is oddly more exciting than the men's college basketball nowadays. But I think the WNBA sucks so much so that I kid you not, I literally forget that it exists every single year until finally I see some type of ad or commercial. If I'm flipping through television, a NBA game happens to be on, and I don't even sit there to watch those. I can't stand the NBA anymore either. And then I see the ads for the WNBA. I see like Steph Curry or somebody, Kevin Durant or LeBron James, watch the WNBA. And I'm like, oh yeah, literally every year I talk about this and I joke about it. And I kid you not, every year I forget about it. That's how obscure the WNBA is. I mean, I think the college basketball for women is the place to be far more than the WNBA. But anyway, having said that, so you had this team literally walked off the court during the national anthem. We have the video. I want you to play the video. I'm going to offer my take. And then we have the coach. I believe her name is Coach Kim Mulkey, I believe is her name. And she basically lies. I just propped this lady up a couple of weeks ago on X. By the way, follow me on X, all things social media at the Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me. We're on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, Getter. Did I say Facebook? All right. So X, wherever I am on social media, the Carl Jackson Show. And guys, if you're listening to this podcast, will you please do me a favor? I suspect if you're listening, you have already subscribed. Will you share this podcast? Will you review this podcast? If you happen to be on YouTube and Rumble, we really want to spread our voice, and we can't do that without your help. So we would certainly appreciate that. All right. So the Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me. All right. But I want to get to this, and we'll dive into this quickly here. So we got the LSU crap that I want to talk about. These anti-American woke female basketball players. And then I'm going to bring you some of, I was going to say just the news, but I don't own just the news, but Jackson's 5. I'm going to bring you some headlines, going to bring you some videos that Gabe has lined up for you. And then I want to talk about the Trans Day of Visibility in a way that I don't think anyone else has. And what I'm going to go through is the details of surgeries, what's called what is it called? I mean, it's called the male surgery is called a vaginoplasty when a male wants to try and transform into a female, which we obviously know cannot happen. But I'm going to talk to you about how these doctors butcher these people. And then you have what's called a phalloplasty, I believe is how it is pronounced. And that is when a woman undergoes surgery. And so I will talk to you about that. And I'll give you some of the details. And I'll give you the suicide rates that nobody is talking about, or at least the attempted suicide rates. And you hear all of the time how you're going to sentence these people to death if you don't let them have these surgeries. It is the complete and utter opposite. All right. So I want you to share this podcast. I want you to listen to this podcast. Take notes if you have to, because you are going to learn a buttload. And I'm going to have to do some reading, which I don't really enjoy, but this is stuff that I didn't know that I researched, so I'm going to have to do some reading to share it with you. But first, actually, let's do this. I have a video of, because I didn't get to talk about this. This was pro-Hamas protesters on Easter, an Easter Mass Sunday service at the Catholic Church on Easter Sunday in New York. I want to play this video. I just want to give you my take on this. And I know that you've probably seen this video, but you haven't heard my take, so I'm going to offer my take. And then we're going to move on to the LSU women's basketball team. So let's go ahead and let's roll that video. Por favor. Okay, so Easter Mass Sunday, you have pro-Hamas protesters, and I am intentionally calling them pro-Hamas protesters, that disrupt the Easter Mass Sunday service in order to support terrorists, because they are obviously anti-Semitic. And I'm sorry, you cannot be pro-Hamas or claim you're pro-Palestinian in the United States of America and claim to be pro-Jewish as well. You're absolutely not. These people are bigots, and the fact that they would disturb and disrupt a church, it is time for churches, whether you're in a synagogue, whether you're at mass, whether you're at an evangelical church, when this type of stuff, I wish they had literal tacklers, former NFL players, sitting on the side when these fools came up that would tackle them so hard. The level of disrespect that these people have, there's no decorum, there's no respect, there's no civility for people whatsoever. You better believe what I believe, otherwise we're going to make your life miserable. I think this stuff is having an adverse effect on the Democrat Party. I think people are getting fed up with this. I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to make for a runaway election, but I do believe that we are experiencing and witnessing a tipping point in the United States of America, where people have witnessed those BLM riots and the Antifa riots of 2020, and they're saying, you know what, enough of this crap. We're tired of these left-wing radicals trying to force their views on the rest of us. And we know the difference, for God's sakes, between a freaking terrorist and our greatest ally in the Middle East, which is Israel, which you have Biden trying to turn his back or play it both ways. He's for Israel, but he's for God. You cannot be for both. I'm sorry. The people of Gaza voted for the terrorist organization Hamas, and the consequences of voting for a terrorist organization that literally goes into Israel's territory after they've been given that strip in Gaza to do their own thing. They go there and murder and slaughter 1,200 people, hold people captive, rape and slaughter men, women, children. You know what? If you voted for them and missiles come your way, your problem. I'm over it. I'm done. Israel, in my opinion, they are too nice when it comes to Hamas. I'm sorry. I would not be dropping leaflets of when I'm going to attack you, because I want to get every single one of you freaking cockroaches. So in my opinion, Israel is too nice when it comes to this war. Now, all right, moving on. Let's get right to the video. This is the LSU women's basketball team walking off the court last night during the National Anthem in their game versus the Iowa basketball team that has that star player, Caitlin. Forgive me. I know she's a big name. I don't watch, but I do know enough about her to know that she's a straight up baller that plays for Iowa. But anyway, I know her name is Caitlin. Forget her last name. I'll look it up. I know, Carl, you should be more informed. I know. I'm sorry. I don't give a flip about women's college basketball. But anyway, let's roll the video.
Honestly, I don't even know when the anthem was played. We kind of have a routine where we are on the floor, and then they come off at the 12-minute mark.
That's when the anthem.
I don't know, and we come in and we do our pregame stuff. I'm sorry, listen, that's nothing intentionally done.
Yeah, listen, and Gabe is my producer here, and Gabe is bilingual. I think his stronger language is safe to say is Spanish. Gabe completely understands what's going on. Why? Because he has a brain, he has common sense, he has eyes, and he sees what all of us saw. That excuse from the coach of the LSU women's basketball team is complete and utter BS, and everybody knows it. You mean to tell me you can't hear what's going on? You mean to tell me that you're in a national championship game and you don't want to, or and you don't find out? You're in a national championship game and you don't find out when the national anthem is playing. Really, wouldn't you want to make sure that if you're in a quote unquote national championship game that you would want to know when the quote unquote national anthem is playing? Can't you hear it? Wouldn't you have the respect to figure out and learn when it was going to be played? And then wouldn't you also get a freaking clue when, I don't know, every damn body around you is standing at attention and putting their hands over their heart? I don't know. It just seems like common sense to me. So I'm totally not buying the BS. I just defended this coach a couple of weeks ago because Washington Post came after her for some reason for her players. And I was like, good for her. Totally lost respect for her. And all it took was just a couple of weeks. I don't give a flip about her fame. I don't give a flip about her brand and how she dresses and all this kind of stuff. Here's what you should do, coach. First and foremost, you should teach all of the chicks that are on your team to have respect for the United States of America because they are privileged beyond belief. Nobody is going to care about these girls playing basketball after they leave college. As a matter of fact, here's what I'm hoping for your players, coach. I hope that they're sentenced to a lifetime of obscurity in the WNBA where no one will ever hear about them again. All right, there, boom. You got it. I'm sorry. I am not buying that. That is a weak, whack behind excuse, and it's total BS, and you can even see it in her demeanor. Nobody's buying that crap. She's not even buying that crap. And how dare she allow her players to sit there and promote this wokeness? All it is virtue signaling. When they are the only reason they can do that is because they live in America, and they should have the respect to get their little butts up and stand up for the flag. Could you imagine these chicks being it wouldn't even happen in Iran. Could you imagine this happening in any place other than the United States of America? Could you imagine this happening in Russia? Could you imagine this happening in China or a place like that? It wouldn't happen. You wouldn't even see these chicks again. And again, if they go to the WNBA, you may not see them anyway. But that's my take on that. All right, so now let's move on. This Trans Day of Visibility, as it's called. So here's my take. All right. The Trans Day of Visibility, and those of you that may be celebrating the Trans Day of Visibility, I would offer this notion that you're cruel if you suffer. You're not compassionate. You're cruel by what's the word? By you're celebrating the Trans Day of Visibility. And obviously, let's just be real. We all know what the Trans Day of Visibility is about. And I've heard arguments from people both on the right or libertarians that have said, listen, and people on the left, listen, this Trans Day of Visibility has been around for over a decade. It just so happened that the Trans Day of Visibility fell on March 31st, right? And here's the correct response to that. And I've heard others say it as well. So it's nothing new coming from me. All right. So we've been celebrating the resurrection, death, burial, resurrection of Jesus Christ. I don't know. It's 2024. So that's 2024 years. You're talking about the trans community has celebrated a Trans Day of Visibility for just over a decade. And so we should make room for them. Well, Carl, you're bigots. Listen, everybody, won't you please? No, here's what you have to understand. The Trans Day of Visibility and all of their little, I'll go through some of their celebrations. all of these days were celebrated for the sole purpose, okay, for the sole purpose of undermining Christianity, for the sole purpose of undermining God. If you're a libertarian, if you're an atheist, or you're an agnostic, you may not understand it because you have spiritual blinders on. But the truth is, this is the reason why they create some of these holidays. All right, let me give you some other holidays. And I honestly, I think that these people, if they were comfortable in their own skin, all right, they wouldn't need all of these days of affirmation. Because notice, oh, well, Carl, what about Christians? Listen, Easter, what do we do at Easter? What do we do for the Easter Holy Week, Easter weekend? We lift Jesus Christ up. We decrease, he increases. When it comes to the trans community, they have to be visible. There's something sick about that. When you sit and think about it, all the left is doing is teaching trans people to be narcissists. When you seriously think about it, when you just take time to think about it. So here's a story from Breitbart. Hat tip, Transgender Day of Visibility is just one of 50 LGBTQIA2S plus celebrations. Every time I see this nonsense, there's another letter. Now there's a number 2. I didn't even know this, and a plus sign added, because this is a joke. This is a joke. And everybody knows it, including gays, OG gays, and lesbians. The Biden administration's decision to honor Transgender Awareness Day on Easter Sunday has caused widespread controversy. All right. Many Americans may be unaware that there are more than 50 LGBTQIA2S plus. All right. I'm just going lesbian and gays. I'm going old school. All right. Themed holidays. Then you have the Trans Day of Visibility that was already on the calendar before this week. The following list was copied almost verbatim from calendars provided by GLAAD, Emporia State University, Michigan State University. In January, I don't think I'll go through all these. No Name Calling Week. That's January 16th through January 16th through the 22nd. Gabe, I don't know why you didn't celebrate that. Completely disrespectful you were. January 27th, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. February. Oh man. Wow. So close. February 7th, National Black HIV AIDS Awareness Day. Man, did you celebrate that one, Gabe? You didn't celebrate that. You're not black. Never mind. Week after Valentine's Day, you have the Aromantic Spectrum Awareness Week. Aromantic, I'm sorry. And then February 28th, HIV is not a crime awareness day. Man, that's a great holiday. March, Bisexual Health Awareness Month. Did you know that? All right. Week varies in March. National LGBT Health Awareness Week. Then March 1st, Zero Discrimination Day. March 10th, National Women and Girls HIV AIDS Awareness Day. March 20th, National Native HIV AIDS Awareness Day. These holidays, they don't sound too festive. Or celebrations. They don't sound too festive. I don't think I'd want to be a part of them. March 31st, International Trans Day of Visibility. April 6th, International Asexuality Day. April 10th. So we got a lot more coming up. National Youth HIV AIDS Awareness Day. Third Friday of April, Day of Silence. April 18th, National Transgender HIV Testing Day. April 18th, Non-Binary Parents Day. I could go on and on. All right. Literally, they celebrate something every freaking month now. All right. This is insane. This is insane. And listen, I mean, I can go on. Can you see that in the camera? I can go on and on and on. I mean, it's just endless. It's endless. This is nothing more than narcissism at its finest. This is nothing more than the left trying to secure trying to secure their future voters, more oppressed victims that they can champion and make sure that they vote for them. All right. Let's move on, Gabe. What else do we have in the line of video? We have all things, I believe, related to this Trans Day of Visibility. Before I get to the cruelty. Okay, so this is Karine Jean-Pierre. What is she stating here? Anyway, we'll just roll the video. I'll react to the video.
Surprised by the misinformation that's been out there around this, and I want to be very clear. Every year for the past several years, on March 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility is marked. And as we know, for folks who understand the calendar and how it works, Easter falls on different Sundays, right? Every year. And this year it happened to coincide with Transgender Visibility Day. And so that is the simple fact. That is what has happened. That is where we are. And I do want to say a couple of things because I think it's important here. As you just stated in your questions, what we've been hearing out there, a lot of misinformation done on purpose. And as a Christian who celebrates Easter with family, President Biden stands for bringing people together and upholding the dignity and freedoms of every American. Now, sadly, and it's not surprising, right? It is actually unsurprising that politicians are seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel, hateful, and dishonest rhetoric. It is dishonest. What
Turn
we've
this
heard the
moron
past
off.
24
I can't even
hours.
take
It
her.
is untrue.
I can't even take this chick. I'm not trying to be mean. I can't take listening to these people that are absolutely numbskulls and pretending like they have something important and something honorable and something good to say. All right, this lady is a complete and utter numbskull. We all know it. Get mad because she's black. Or I don't give a flip. Everybody knows it. That lady should be nowhere near the White House, let alone the press secretary. All right, man. Just drives me insane. It's almost as if I need to go, I don't know, take a nap or something and just rest and relax after hearing that crap. Speaking of resting and relaxing, you might have heard that Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way they used to because the left hates anything that is Americana. Anyway, they've been part of this cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. That's pretty impressive. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one product company with the help of his dedicated employees. They now have hundreds of products, so you may not even know about them. To get the word out, I want to invite you, my listeners, to check out their $25 extravaganza. That's a 2-pack multi-use MyPillows starting at just $25. MyPillow sandals are $25. Their 6-pack of towel sets are $25. Guys, you better bum rush those. I'm telling you. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25 for the first time ever. The premium MyPillows with all the new Giza fabric, just $25. Gabe, you may actually get a gift this year. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Carl. It's C-A-R-L. I do not spell it like the communists. It is C-A-R-L, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Do that today. That's promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. Man, that is a great deal. Mother's Day is coming up. Father's Day is coming up. You may be celebrating someone's birthday or an anniversary. You could really look good by just spending $25 and these people thinking that you spent $100. That would be amazing. Go to mypillow.com. Okay, now let's do this. Do we have any more video to roll, Gabe, before I get to this main topic? All right, we've got these Trans Day video. Oh, we got to roll this video. You got to check out this video. I hope that you guys are watching on YouTube and Rumble. This is just a concerned mother. This is more reason as to why why you need to homeschool, get your kids out of government school. Or make sure that you are thoroughly involved. Make sure you're voting for school board members so you don't experience what apparently this young mother is experiencing. But I want you to check out the curriculum that exists inside of these books that we're getting ready to see that she's going to flip through. All right, let's roll it.
So here's a video of a mom going through a book that was sent home with her child, K-7. And
7th grade. I'll read out what the book...
You can just see for yourself.
All right, so...
K-3. You got the basics,
agender, bigender, cisgender. This is what demagender, endogender, femme, gender fluid, horogender, intersex, juxera, kinogender, KYNI gender, libragender, man or boy, non-binary, off gender. Pangender, gender, questioning, gender reassign. Subgender. All right, transgender, ungender, vingender, woman or girl,
It is just
Zerl, and with an X, yin, yang, ren,
what the fuck?
Chinese gender, Z, excuse the language, Zer. Okay, so that is a book that a mother is flipping through because she has a child. I don't know in what grade, but this is a book that exists for kindergarten through 7th graders. All right. And they're confusing these kids that are born boys or girls. And that's all that's all any human will ever be born, a boy or a girl. And so they're confusing them with this book. So that is one video. Remember the good old days. I don't have to say this, but I will. When we used to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, American history, remember those good old days? Just think of how much these people are dumbing down your students. Guys, listen, people are getting dumber. You know it, and I know it. We speak to them all the time. Even some of these college students. Remember back in the day when people went to college, and when they went to college, there was like this aura around them, like, oh, they're smart, they're brilliant, they're going places. Now, unless they're STEM for the most part, and even some STEM, let's be honest, but unless they're STEM for the most part or practicing law, you listen to some of these students now that are in college and you're like, what the heck? I mean, you are dumb as all get out. How did you get into college? And then we learned that they got a major student loan for some type of program that isn't going to make them much money. But this is what your kid is learning in these government schools today. So make sure you either need to be involved. You need to make sure you vote for the school board. Make sure you vote in these school board meetings or take your kid out. Honestly, it used to be, homeschooling used to be this thing where it was like, I don't know if I want to homeschool. Guys, I feel like government schools are making your kids so much dumber nowadays. I don't think you can do I don't think you could do a worse job. I really don't. I really don't. I say that wholeheartedly. I don't trust them unless you're in a premier, you live somewhere where it's carved out, where you've got teachers that aren't brainwashing, and you've got school board members that aren't trying to brainwash, and superintendents that aren't trying to brainwash your kids, but genuinely teach your kids. And some of those places do exist. All right, let me be fair. Some of those places do exist, but it seems to me they're becoming more and more rare. All right, next, this is Joe Biden trying to make amends after he came back. I couldn't even find the video anymore, guys. I'm not going to lie. I scrolled. I was trying to find the video of Joe Biden because I was a day late, trying to get the video of Joe Biden basically supporting and offering homage to the Trans Day of Visibility. But it was hard for me to find that beyond just articles. But here he is, he's not here, not in this particular video. The next day he lied, and he probably didn't lie. He probably just forgot because he has dementia. We all know it. And said he never said that. But this is Joe Biden and his staff, the Biden administration, trying to make amends apparently the next day, right? For bolstering the Trans Day of Visibility that is totally designed to undermine religion in America, this Judeo-Christian system that we are all privileged to live under. But here's Joe Biden. Here's what he is now calling Easter. Let's hear it, Gabe.
God bless you all. Enjoy the day. And I'm coming down to do that Easter egg roll in just a minute. Thank you all so very, very much. Thanks, everybody. And by the way, say hello to oyster bunnies. Come on up, bunnies. Get up here so they can see you.
Have you ever fished for those? You ever fish for those, Gabe? Oyster bunnies? Those are pretty good. They're pretty good. I'm not a seafood guy, but oyster bunnies is one that I was like, okay, this isn't bad. Typically, I'm not a seafood guy. Maybe Joe Biden knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I'll let that set in for just a minute. I want to talk about the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, basically supporting the Day of Trans Day of Visibility. All right. So the Secretary of Education put out a video for for supposedly lesbian and gay kids, bisexual, transgender, questioning kids, kids that have no clue who and what they are until adults tell them who and what they are. So that's what the Secretary of Education did, which in my opinion, Representative Thomas Massey came out and said it. This is exactly why we need to abolish the Department of Education. It's completely worthless. It is a brainwashing tool. I don't understand. For the life of me, I do not understand why the Republican Party does not abolish the Department of Education. Show some stats of how kids are getting dumber. Show this video of a man trying to do. You let me know when you have it up, Gabe. Of a man that is literally, I mean, celebrating, sexualizing, and confusing your children. I mean, it's insane. It is insane.
At the Department of Education, we know that all students do their best when they're seen and they're supported. To the many transgender students across the country listening on this Trans Day of Visibility, we in the Biden-Harris administration want you to know that we see you, we support you, and we celebrate you. We also know it's not an easy time to be you. Walking into a classroom should be an act of hope, not an act of bravery. That every day you choose to show up as your true self, you make this world a more brave, more honest, and more free place. In your gift for seeing things as they could be, I see the promise of America. Today, we at the Department of Education want you to know that your school, your community, and your country are better because you're a part of it. You don't just belong here, we need you here. From all of us here at the Department of Education, happy Trans Day of Visibility.
Listen, I don't, Gabe, you didn't say that. I want you to say it. I want you to say it where everybody can hear it, because I think Gabe just hit it spot on. I mean, it's the perfect reaction to what you just watched and heard. Gabe, please say what you just said in my ear. How could you think anything else? You have a grown behind man encouraging children to basically explore their sexuality, chop off their body parts. I'll get into the stats of that in just a second. In what world? I mean, just a few years ago, seriously, wrap your head around this. Just a few years ago, this guy would have been looked at as a pervert. He would have been looked at as evil and satanic, as Gabe said, and somebody that was a future inmate. All right. He's the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona is, supporting the Trans Day of Visibility, speaking to kids, speaking to children. A real man, a real father, if a man spoke like that, spoke to your child like that, you should bust that fool in the mouth. Sick. Satanic. Gabe said it best. Absolutely satanic. All right, just real quick, some news, and and then I'll share some stats with why I really say, listen, if you support this Trans Day of Visibility, honestly, I think you're cruel. You're not compassionate. I know many of you think, hey, the compassionate thing to do is to live and let live. No, especially not when it comes to this particular topic. Just real quick in the news, Iran claims Israeli strikes near consulate killed 7 people, including 2 commanders. So this from Just the News. Iran said yesterday that Israeli airstrikes hit a building next to its consulate in Damascus, Syria, killing at least 7 people, including 2 top-tier Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commanders. Israel has not claimed responsibility for the airstrike, but the country has a tense relationship with Iran, which has vowed to destroy Israel and has funded anti-Israel terrorist groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas. I don't see what the problem is. I'm sorry. I'm over this crap. I'm not sitting here and going to pretend as if I feel sorry for terrorists. Israel, in my opinion, has been too nice. I don't want to see any civilian killed. None of us do. But Israel has one of the best rates of making sure that in a time of war, especially when they're under an existential threat, they're saving lives. In a sense, I mean, they're trying to avoid casualties. But unfortunately, when you vote for terrorists, this type of stuff happens. All right. That's what happens. I'm over this stuff. I'm over people sitting here and pretending like, these pro-Palestinian or anything less than pro-Hamas and anti-Jewish Americans and these people around the world. I'm just tired of it. Judge in El Paso releases all of those illegal aliens who overran the border. You guys remember that video? You guys remember seeing the pictures? 100 or so men military aged men that overran the National Guard on the southern border. Yeah, a judge just released them. And an El Paso judge on Easter Sunday ordered the release of the illegals accused in a border riot when a stampede overwhelmed National Guard troops along the Rio Grande. Court officials noted that undocumented migrants, quote unquote, all right, will stay jailed if there is a federal immigration hold blocking their release. But we know there isn't, with Joe Biden. Presiding magistrate judge Humberto Acosta made his ruling on Sunday. You like how I rolled my tongue with that one? That was pretty good, Gabe. March 31st during an online teleconference bond hearing where he accused the El Paso District Attorney's Office of not being ready to proceed with detention hearings for each defendant. What a scam, man. What a scam. Palestinian protesters set up an autonomous zone in New York City. These are pro-Hamas people. They set up an autonomous zone. It's happening in New York, so nothing will happen as a result of it. I'm guessing Harvard applications dwindle amid anti-Semitism and plagiarism scandals. Good. Glad to hear it. Another bit of news that I offer to you is that President Trump was able to pay the $175 million bond, so his assets will not be seized as a result of that. Also, big news, and I'll talk about this another day. In the state of Florida, the Supreme Court has, good Lord, let me read it here. Here's a headline from the Daily Wire. Florida Supreme Court allows the 6-week abortion ban to take effect, but they opened the door for a ballot referendum. And that's exactly what the left has been doing all around the country. They will offer these amendments that are so confusing. Basically, this amendment process will allow the slaughter of a baby all the way up until 9 months. And some are even saying even if a baby is born. So that's one of the amendment things they're doing. There's a second one, too. I forget what it is. But we won on the issue of 6-week abortion ban in the state of Florida. But now you have these left-wing groups coming in offering this amendment process. The Florida Supreme Court is going to allow this amendment on the ballot. These amendments are always confusing. This issue really tugs on my heart. So perhaps it's time for me to make some calls. I don't know how I can get involved, but I hate that. When we make a state red, it should stay red. And I'm tired of these George Soros types coming in funding these things to destroy our state. New York City will commit thousands of personal and spend millions of taxpayer dollars to protect subways instead of detain criminals. That's nice. Reporting indicates Russian assassination team behind the Havana syndrome cases. So this is from Axios. So there's new evidence that suggests that Russia may be behind the mysterious neurological illnesses that has affected U.S. diplomats and government workers around the world. A new investigation linked a Russian military assassination unit to cases of what's called Havana syndrome, contradicting the U.S. previous assessment that it was very unlikely, quote unquote, a foreign adversary was to blame. The joint investigation published Sunday by the insider Der Spiegel and CBS's 60 Minutes found that Russia's GRU unit 29155 may be behind the attacks. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on Monday denied Russia's involvement in the Havana syndrome cases, telling reporters all this is nothing more than a baseless accusation and unfounded accusation by the media. This is from Benny Johnson. 60 Minutes claim Russia may be behind the Havana syndrome attacks by using a direct energy weapon against U.S. officials. So basically what it is, let's see if I can try to explain this. When Secret Service agents and stuff like that were different places, overseas places like Russia, they might go buy something like a microwave or something to that effect, and all of a sudden later they leave that area. They've got these severe headaches, they've got sickness and all that kind of stuff going on, and so that's some of the ways in which they suspect Russia has been using this so-called Havana syndrome. I'm Googling this real quick Havana syndrome is a medical condition reported by U.S. and Canadian government officials and military personnel. This is Wikipedia, so take it for what you will. Primarily in overseas locations. Reported symptoms range in severity from pain and ringing in the ears to cognitive dysfunction, and were first reported in 2016 by U.S. and Canadian embassy staff in Havana, Cuba. Beginning in 2017, more people, including U.S. intelligence and military personnel and their families, reported having these symptoms in other places such as China, India, Europe, and Washington, D.C. All right, now, let me do this real quick. So that's what's in the news. I know I'm giving you guys a lot today. I want to close out with some of the hidden costs. I'm sorry, wrong thing. I'm skipping ahead of myself. The rates of suicide that have doubled. Rates of suicide double after gender reassignment surgery, according to a survey. Hat tip to the Epic Times. So attempted suicide rates among people who identified as transgender more than doubled after receiving a vaginoplasty. I'll get into the details of this. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're listening to this podcast with kids, you're probably not going to like what you have to hear. It's utterly disgusting, but I'm going to share it with you real quickly. All right. The study analyzed the rates of psychiatric, and this is why I say, if you're supporting the Trans Day and celebrating the Trans Day of Visibility, you're a cruel person. You're not compassionate whatsoever. The study analyzed the rates of psychiatric, and if I did I even finish the summary? Attempted suicide rates among people who identified as trans more than doubled after receiving a vaginoplasty. This is according to a peer-reviewed study that was published in the Journal of Urology. All right. So attempted suicide rates among people who identified as trans more than doubled after receiving surgery. We all know the lie. Listen, if these adults don't receive surgery, then you know what, you're just killing them because they're going to commit suicide. It's actually the complete and utter opposite. The study analyzed the rates of psychiatric emergencies before and after gender altering surgery among 869 men who are males, who underwent vaginoplasty, 357 females who underwent phalloplasty, I believe is what it's called in California, from 2012 to 2018. The researchers found the rates of psychiatric emergencies were high both before and after the gender-altering surgery, with similar overall rates in both groups. However, suicide attempts were higher, markedly higher, in those who received vaginoplasty. So men that had the chapatogophomies. Men who undergo vaginoplasty attempted suicide at double the rates of women. All right, that had the phalloplasty surgery. The author of the study writes, here's the suicide attempt breakdown. Among the 869 patients who underwent vaginoplasty, 38 patients, that's a high number when you think about it. Out of 869 people, 38 patients attempted suicide, with 9 attempts that were before surgery. All right. 38 patients attempted suicide. Among the 869 patients, 38 patients attempted suicide. All right. 25 after surgery. 4 attempts before and after surgery is what they found. 9 attempts before surgery. Researchers found a 1.5% overall risk of suicide before vaginoplasty and a 3.3% risk of suicide after the procedure. Almost 3% of those who attempted suicide after undergoing vaginoplasty did not present with a risk of suicide prior to surgery. Suicide attempt rates for females before undergoing phalloplasty and after didn't change. So those numbers didn't change. They didn't get better. They stayed stagnant. All right. So for those of you that have argued, well, listen, I mean, after they have the surgery, the chances of them attempting suicide or committing suicide is less. It is just not true. At least with women, the numbers stay stagnant. But with men that wanted to be women, the numbers doubled. And guys, let me just say this just real quickly. For those of you, I'm so sick and tired because I've heard this plenty of times. We need to protect the kids when it comes to trans surgeries. We need to protect kids boys, girls, men, women, adults, because these people have a mental disorder. This is gender dysphoria. We all know this. Are we this sick? Are we this sick and evil that we're going to play along with this, knowing that these people's lives are going to be destroyed for the sake of what? Doctors making more money? For the sake of pharmaceutical companies making more money? For the sake of virtue signaling? You don't have any Bozaks or, a freaking spine to stand up against this nonsense? Tired of this crap, man. Stats on the emergency room and inpatient psychiatric encounters outside of suicide attempts was similar between the vaginoplasty and the phalloplasty. Again, I hope that I'm pronouncing this correctly. Approximately 22.2% and 20.7% of patients respectively experience at least one psychiatric encounter. These are the stats when it comes to men versus women in psychiatric encounters. The study found 33.9% chance that a biological man undergoing a vaginoplasty would experience a psychiatric encounter after surgery, compared with a 26.5% chance for a biological female who underwent phalloplasty if an episode had occurred before surgery. These are just stats. These are facts, guys. The author stressed the importance of counseling biological males undergoing a feminizing transition with a history of prior psychiatric emergencies. So if you had prior psychiatric emergencies, and you're a doctor and you perform these surgeries, you're evil. You're evil. You're evil. You're despicable. I hope you end up in jail one day. I hope you end up broke and alone, dying, painful death. I'm sorry. This is just cruel. And we've got a president and his administration celebrating this, totally ignoring this information. Suicide rates 19-fold higher. A board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. This is, again, the Epic Times interviewed him. This is Dr. Alfonso Oliva, a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon, said research into the psychiatric outcomes and long-term follow-up of those who have had sex reassignment surgery is lacking, but an important paper is, he says, is worth mentioning. So why do you think the research on sex reassignment surgery is lacking? Because the Miguel Cardonas, the Karine Jean-Pierres, the Joe Bidens of the world, the Jill Bidens of the world don't want you to know the truth. All they want is another oppressed victim class that'll be their voters down the consequences. That's all you need to know. Here's a quote from Dr. Oliva. It's hard to refute this paper because it's a longitudinal study. In Sweden, everyone is in a database, and through diagnosis codes, they're able to follow what happens to every citizen in terms of their medical history. They waited more than, listen to this, 10 years after people had surgery and found that death by suicide had an adjusted hazard ratio of 19.1%. So after trans surgery, all right, the suicide or a ratio, of 19.1. Not a percent. After trans surgery, the suicide rate after 10 years of following people were 19 times higher than the general population after 10 years. That's what you're supporting when you sit there and say you support this trans stuff. Here's how this stuff, I hesitate to read this, but I think it's important. It grossed me out just reading it. Could you imagine watching a video of it or actually performing the surgery? All right. So here's how a penis is created on a female. This is the process that's known as a phalloplasty, phalloplasty. That may be phalloplasty. I'm not sure. All right. But here's how the penis is created on a biological female. A penis is created using tissues from the genitals and forearm or the thigh. All right. The external genitals, such as the labia or the outer labia, are used to create a scrotum, and testicular implants are inserted months later, along with an implant that will cause erections. And I'm sure you guys have heard the stories where basically, excuse me for sounding gross, it's not a full erection, basically. More vaginoplasties are performed than phalloplasties, so you have more men that have these surgeries than women do. More than 3,000 procedures performed annually for men with gender dysphoria. They admit it. They admit it. According to John Hopkins Medicine, vaginoplasty is a surgical procedure. Listen how this one goes. That involves removing the penis, the testicles, and scrotum to create a vulva and a functioning vagina. Surgeons typically create a vaginal canal using the skin surrounding the existing penis and scrotum, or by using a skin graft from the abdomen or the thigh. Wow. A penile inversion is the most commonly performed procedure where the skin is removed from the, and I'm sorry, this is so graphic, but I think it needs to be heard, from the penis and inverted to form a pouch that is inserted into the vaginal cavity created between the urethra and the rectum. Surgeons then partially remove, shorten, and reposition the urethra and create a labia majora, a labia minora, and a clitoris. Another surgical method involves using a robotic system that enables surgeons to reach into the body through a small incision in the belly button to create a vaginal canal. The type of vaginoplasty performed varies among patients. For example, younger patients, like children, like the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, was supporting, younger patients who have never experienced puberty may have insufficient penile skin to do a standard penile inversion. Here's what Dr. Liva had to say. When you take a child who's about to undergo puberty and they suggest giving puberty blockers to stop puberty at age 10 to 11 and a half, and when you do that for little boys, they aren't able to get tissue from the penis and scrotum, so creating a vagina is very difficult. You have to use tissue from other areas of the body, such as the peritoneum or the colon. Some researchers in Brazil are actually looking into using tilapia fish to do it. I will never eat tilapia again. I hate fish, but tilapia was the only one I would eat on occasion. No more, all right? After a vaginoplasty is performed, the recovery process is extensive, and vaginal dilation must be performed at varying intervals throughout the patient's life. So, in other words, a dude has a vagina formed. Remember the young boy Jazz? I don't know if he still has a TV show or not, but his parents were obsessed with making him a woman. And one of the ways in which he had to keep his manufactured vagina open is there had to be something put inside of that opening every day, kind of like your earlobe when you first get your ear pierced. You got to keep the earring in there so the hole doesn't close up. Yeah, that's what a person like Jazz is going to have to do for their entire life. You sick, freaking evil perverts that want this. In addition to an increased risk of suicide, vaginoplasty is associated with numerous physical complications, including wound separation, vaginal stenosis, hematoma, rectovaginal fistulas, granulation tissue, bleeding, infection, skin or clitoral necrosis, suture line. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Dehiscence, 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 when the surgical incision opens, urinary retention or vaginal prolapse, according to a 2021 paper in the Internal Brazilian Journal of Urology. A rectovaginal fistula is the, quote, most devastating complication, close quote, of a vaginoplasty that can occur despite careful technique, quote unquote, and without obvious injury to the rectum. A rectovaginal fistula is an abnormal connection between the rectum and vagina that can cause fecal incontinence, hygiene issues, vaginal or anal irritation, and fake vaginal, all right, and potentially life-threatening abscesses and fistula recurrence. Abscesses, I wasn't even sure what that was. Gabe had to tell me. They're basically boils. It's disgusting. Rates of complication. Just listen to this, and then I'll end. A 2021 review in Andrology found the rate of complications following penile inversion, vaginoplasty, range from 20 to 70%, with most of the complications occurring during the first 4 months following the procedure. 20 to 70% complication rate. Trans Day of Visibility. Instead of celebrating Resurrection Sunday, the only one that could deliver us from this sickness. 32% complication rate in the 2018 clinical anatomy review. In a meta-analysis, researchers reviewed 125 articles to assess neovaginal complications following surgery. After selecting 13 studies that included 1,684 patients, they found a complication rate of 32% with a reoperation rate of 22% for non-aesthetic reasons. Normal complication rates are normally 2 to 3%, according to the doctor. He says for cosmetic surgery, if the complication rate was more than 2 to 3%, you wouldn't have any patients. These are very high percentage rates that we just accept. So 2 to 3% complication rates with cosmetic surgery, you lose patients. But when it comes to this trans stuff, 32% complication rates, 10 times higher, no problem. Guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Take advantage of that $25 deal at mypillow.com. Use the promo code Carl, say CARL, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. Don't forget to follow us on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find us wherever we are on social media, X, Instagram, Facebook, True Social, Getter, YouTube, Rumble, wherever we are, check us out. Actually, YouTube and Rumble would be subscribing to the podcast. So please do that. Subscribe, review, share. We would certainly appreciate that. And we appreciate you. Until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.